Okay, hello. If you're watching this in the future, welcome to the Big and Bold event, Adventures in Chair Yoga. And if you're here live with me, hello, I'm glad you're here. I am going to get started because I have a lot of things to say in just 1 hour to say them all in. But I want to just start with who I am, because I know that sometimes people just come across my stuff and they haven't already been following me and you're like, I don't even know who you are. So hi, my name is Laura, and I am a body liberation guide. I'm a yoga teacher. I lead events and workshops and retreats. I teach classes, and my whole thing, my whole jam is body liberation and fat liberation, and helping people to honor and celebrate the bodies that they have right now, not in a year, not 10 years ago, like exactly as we are now, because we all deserve exactly that. And so the people that I mostly teach are people who are fat folks or older folks, people with injuries, people with disabilities, or straight size able-bodied people who are really wanting to reinforce their own body positive or body liberation journey. And so one of the things that I love most in all the things in the world is yoga props. And I did another video about yoga props and like kind of a quick and dirty, here's what they are, here's a few ways you might use them each. And if you're interested in that video, you can find it on my website on the tab about my book. And speaking of, here's my book. So these big and bold events are to promote my book, Big and Bold, Yoga for the Plus Size Woman. And our portion today, we're going to be talking about chair yoga. And so I just wanted to show you a few things from the book when we talk about yoga props. So here's the section on, oh, that's straps. Here's the section on chairs where I give like a brief introduction. And then almost every pose that I go through in the book, and the pose pages look like, let's find one here. Pose pages look like this, so you can see there are options demonstrated. So almost every pose in this book has an option to use a chair as a prop, and let's get into that now. Why are there so many options for using chairs, and why do we even use chairs in yoga? So usually the first answer that people say is that somebody can't get on the floor. And that's true. Sometimes it's that like getting on the floor does not work for people's bodies for a large number of reasons, but there's also a lot of other reasons why getting on the floor wouldn't work. It's not always that like you can't get on the floor, but like maybe the floor is really gross and you don't want to get on it, or it's really hard and you don't have any padding. When you travel and you're like in a hotel room and maybe you want to do some stretches or movement, but like the floor is questionable, what do? Chairs, chair yoga, chair stretching. Or you're at work and you don't want to like be the weirdo crawling around on the floor, you can do some chair stuff. Although I am that weirdo all the time. But there's a lot of reasons why getting on the floor wouldn't work for somebody, both body related and also environmentally related. Maybe it's just not a good place to get on the floor, or the floor is gross. This happens all the time with me. But other reasons to use a chair other than not wanting to or not being able to come to the floor is this kind of the same as all of the yoga props, right? And so I always talk about props doing 4 things. They provide us support, stability, interest, and challenge. And normally with props, we just think of one thing, which is, oh, they give you support. They make it easier, right? That's what we think of. Well, I'm here to tell you all of the yoga props, they do all these 4 things: support, stability, interest, and challenge. And so chairs are such a good example of that. There are some poses where the chair version is way harder than the floor or the standing version. We're actually going to do one of those today. And a big one that I like to tell people, especially people who think that they don't need props or they don't need a chair, is the interest piece. if you go the rest of your life and say you have like a great yoga practice for the rest of your life and you always do the poses the same way, that sounds really boring to me. And so I like to have fun with my yoga practice, like with my personal practice and with my teaching. I like to try to figure out new ways to approach poses, new ways to experience a pose, to keep it fresh, to maintain that interest in the practice. And using props, and especially using chairs, it's a really fun, cool, great, insert excellent word, way to do that. And we're going to talk about that when we move to the mat in just a little bit. So if you just remember those 4 things: support, stability, interest, and challenge. Obviously they can support you. Obviously we know how they can bring stability, and we'll experience that, but it's the interest and the challenge that I really want to give voice to, because it's something that people don't think about when they think about chairs and yoga props in general. So I wanted to just super briefly address like myths or like preconceptions about chairs and props in general. And if you've watched the props video, this is going to be a repeat of that, but very quickly, our culture, and when I say our, I live in the United States, so that's the culture that I can speak about. Our culture really values the narrative of, oh, I couldn't do the thing and I worked really hard and then I succeeded by accomplishing this thing, right? So whether it's yoga or business or romance or your body or whatever, right? We love that kind of story. And how that comes out in yoga is, oh, I started yoga and I had to use blocks and a strap, maybe a chair, and I worked really hard and now I don't have to use those things. And like, that makes me like successful. And I hate that kind of narrative. I think it's really damaging to people. And I think it's really unkind, and it's not really doing us any favors, because that mentality pushes us to be in that competitive mindset that like, oh, even if I'm not competing against other people, I'm competing against myself. And I'm not into that. And this is not to say that if you feel like that, that you're wrong. I'm just saying, for me, that doesn't resonate. That doesn't lead me to like good mental health and like a happy life. And so the way that people think about props is like, oh, that's for people who can't do it. But if you do it, if you use the props and like you keep working, then you'll get to a point where you don't have to use the props. And that can be true. You can get to a point to where you don't technically need the props, but I am a huge proponent of props for stability, support, interest, and challenge for life. Not that you always have to use a chair for this pose. You always have to use blocks for this pose. But by saying, oh, I don't need those, and like cutting yourself off from the benefits that props can provide, I think that you're doing yourself a disservice. And when teachers teach that, I think you're doing your students a disservice. When studios teach that, et cetera, et cetera. When our culture teaches that, we're doing the entire community a disservice, because there is so much to gain from using props, including having fun and switching it up and learning something new and trying something in a fresh way, and keeping that interest and finding new ways to challenge yourself. So last thing I'll say about this kind of topic is when it comes to challenge, especially if you're in a larger body or a disabled body or an injured body, an older body, the way that you find personal challenges in postures or sequences might look really different. So for example, if a young, thin, able-bodied, 20-something is doing like a balance pose, right? So tree, where you stand on one leg and you put the other leg on or your other foot on your leg. So pulling it up to the thigh, I'm sure you've all seen that, like where they grab their foot and they pull it up and they wedge it against their thigh. My body, because of the size and shape of thighs, that is not possible for me. That like literally can't happen in the body that I have. And so in the past I would go, oh, I wish I could do that. and it was like a really negative thing. But if I just recognize that my version of a challenge, because that's like their version of a challenge, the higher up the leg, the harder it is to hold that balance pose. So my version of a challenge, my accessible challenge, looks like coming into the highest lift that I can do, right? So pulling up that leg, that foot on the leg, and then finding other ways to challenge myself. Instead of pulling the leg up super high, what I'm going to do is create movement and task myself with following movement with my eyes, which is really hard when you're in that balance pose. And we're both doing the same pose. We're both doing tree pose, and we're both finding our best challenge for our bodies today. So when I talk about accessible challenges, it means that just because I'm fat, or just because I'm disabled, just because I'm old, just because I'm injured, just because whatever, it doesn't mean that I don't want or cannot be challenged. Like, don't want to be challenged or cannot be challenged. It just may look different. And if your teacher doesn't know how to work with your kind of body, they don't know how to bring those challenges for you. And that's where knowing yourself what to do can give you the confidence and can empower you to walk into any class and know, this is what I want to get out of it, and I know what to do. So if this teacher doesn't know what to do, I know what to do. And that is very empowering, because being a person in a body that is not like thin and young and super able-bodied, walking into a yoga studio is very intimidating, slightly horrifying. I'm a yoga teacher, and I still feel nervous about walking into a random class because I never know what the culture there is going to be, what the teacher is going to know. So all of those things being said, I want to start talking about actual chair yoga. So if you're watching this now, feel free to type in the chat or even unmute yourself and ask a question. If you're watching this in the future, feel free to leave a comment. Probably you're watching this on YouTube, I would imagine. So feel free to leave a comment, and I will absolutely respond to it when I see it. So I want to talk about physically using a chair for yoga. So here's my setup that I have for us today. So this is my favorite yoga mat. It's a standard sized yoga mat, and this is a dining room table chair. Now, a chair for chair yoga can be a lot of different kinds of chairs. A metal folding chair is great. They're lightweight. They fold up out of the way when you're not using it, and they, as long as you get like a good quality one, they will hold your weight. I have used not great quality metal folding chairs, and they have held me just fine. If you want to be sure and know, like, this chair is definitely going to hold my weight, when you buy that metal folding chair, there will be a weight limit, and just check the weight limit. And there are chairs that you can get, maybe not like in store as easily, but certainly online, because I've looked them up before. There are metal folding chairs online that are rated up to like 600 pounds. So you can check that out. I just stole this one from my dining room table, and it's not the ideal yoga chair, but it's very sturdy, and it's what I have, and so that's just what I use, and I'm used to it. One day I'll find a better chair. So a dining room table chair, a metal folding chair, what you want is no wheels. So you want the feet on the floor, no arms, and you want it to feel sturdy. We do not want a rickety chair for this, because not only can you sit on it, but you can put your hands on it and lean into it. You can put your legs on it and lean into it. You could possibly be using this chair in a very, what is the word? I don't know. In a way that puts a lot of pressure. So you want to make sure it's not rickety, because it'll break. You want to always position your chair on a non-slip surface and well within the bounds. So right now, actually, I'm not doing a great job of that. I'll move it when I stand up. The back legs are a little close to the back of the mat. I'll bring it forward. You want to make sure it's well within, because sometimes the chair can move a little bit. And if it's close to the edge and it moves, it could move off of the mat. And you always want all four legs on the mat, because if two of them come off, if one of them comes off and you press on it and you kind of push out instead of just down, that chair will slide off of the mat if any of the legs are not on the mat, and you can really hurt yourself. Ask me how I know. Ask me where all of my safety Warnings come from experience. So when I get up and we start moving around and stuff, I'll show you again, but basically no wheels, no arms, sturdy chair, well within the bounds of the mat. And also throughout your practice, looking down, just making sure that it's staying within the bounds of the mat, especially if you're doing some of these more like pushy kind of things, like from standing, especially with arms and with legs, you're really putting weight in. That chair can absolutely move depending on how you're using it and the non-slip surface. So just things to really keep in mind. It's very important. I cannot stress this enough. You can really hurt yourself if your chair moves. That being said, as long as you do the things that I just said, your chair should not move. It should not just shoot out from under you. You're gonna be fine. But if you feel nervous about it, and I'll show you this in a little bit, like I have this little right here piece of wall where nothing is. You could move your mat up to the wall and position the chair where the chair back is touching the wall, then you know it's not going anywhere. So if you feel nervous about any of the stuff that we do or any of the stuff that you try later, just know, put it up against something. You don't need it, but mentally it can help you like to feel more comfortable really putting your weight into the chair in that way. I know it can feel a little scary if you've never done it before. Okay, sorry, I'm looking at my notes. I want to make sure I don't miss anything. So different ways to use a chair, and we're going to go over all three of these, which is standing, seated, and from the floor. Now, if you're watching this and you're like, okay, but the whole point is I don't want to get on the floor, or that doesn't work for me. Cool, you don't have to do the floor portion. I just wanted to show you so that you would know that it was an option, and maybe it will help some people. We're going to do the least amount of things on the floor. I think I've only written down 2 things. But just to know that even if you are getting on the floor, a chair can be an awesome prop, both for like movement yoga and for restorative. So with all of that being said, oh, I wanted to show a couple things. I don't have extra chairs, so I won't be able to show you this, but there's also a way to find postures or leg positions that normally would be on the floor, but that doesn't work for you. Number one, you can do them on any surface. So if you can get on your bed and do those, a lot of the things that are like seated on the floor, like wide leg or, legs out to the front, do it from your bed. Absolutely. There's no reason. There's so many things you can do from your bed top. But also if you have more chairs, here's a great example of, I lost a bookmark, of something that you can do. So here with 3 chairs, I'm able to do a seated wide leg position, never having to come actually onto the floor. So you have to have a lot of extra chairs for that. What else? Whatever I had marked, the bookmark fell out, so I don't know what I was going to show you. Here's another one where you just need 1 extra chair. And this is Baddha Konasana pose, which is bound angle. It's soles of the feet together, knees out to the side. And this is just showing how you can do this, bringing feet to another chair as if you're on the floor. We're actually going to do a version of this with 1 chair with feet like low, legs kind of at an angle. That is a nice version of this also. You get that same nice hip opening that you get in this. Okay. So again, it's from this book. Buy it, it's great. I'm really proud of it. I did a good job. Actually, if you were watching this before December 31st, 2021, I do have a holiday offer. And that is if you buy the book for yourself or for somebody else, just email me like the receipt or proof of purchase, and I will give you a printable gift certificate for 1 free live yoga class. All right. And that is the full sales pitch. So now let's talk about chair yoga. Let me bring my notes with me so I don't forget what we're doing. Okay, so here we are. I'm going to move that chair a little forward, well within the bounds. That's what we're looking for. Actually, we're going to start standing, so I'm going to move it, but that's what it would look like if you're going to do a seated thing. So well within the bounds, really taking my time. I double check, making sure. So we're going to start with the things that you do from standing. If standing doesn't work for you, feel free to, one, if you're live, let me know and I can show you some alternatives. And also, two, experiment with what I'm doing from the chair. It's really fun to play around if you see something. And I'll try to give some options as we go through as well. Many of these things you can do standing and seated. So if you're following along, you might just be watching this, and that's totally fine. If you're following along, let's give some shakes. Wiggling out. All right. So we're going to come to stand in front of the chair, and we're going to do a little sequence, and I'm going to talk us through it really, really, really slowly. So this is slower than you would probably go through it if you were just practicing by yourself. But I'm going to assume that you don't know anything about yoga or anything about these poses, so that if you actually don't, then you can follow along. And you're not like, what is happening? Okay, we stand in front of the chair, and we just want to get really grounded. So I like to really place my feet and feel very firmly the floor, the mat under my toes, the balls of my feet under my heels, and wanting my weight to be really evenly distributed. All right. So this sequence that we're going to do, I think, is a really good all over, like generally stretching sequence. There's a little bit of strength in it at a certain point, but it's mostly like relaxing, stretching, flowing kind of stuff. All right, so let's reach up, look up, and we're going to bend the knees and forward fold. Hands come to the chair. So while we're here, I want to talk about one use of the chair, which is to make kneeling poses accessible. If kneeling and putting pressure on your knees sucks or is not possible for you, this is a great version. So this, imagine if you were on the floor, you would be on hands and knees. So this is a standing version of hands and knees or tabletop pose. And now we're going to do a standing version of cat-cow, which is a big spine stretching pose. So here, make sure you're not locking your knees. Keep them just a little soft. And on the inhale, we're going to drop the belly down, lift the hips, the shoulders, and the chin up. Exhale, we're going to round through the back, tucking pelvis, chin and shoulders come forward. Inhale, arching. Exhale, rounding. Inhale, arching. Exhale, rounding. Just going back and forth. You can feel this also as a nice stretch for back of the legs. A couple more. So we're going to do a version of this from seated. All right, so from here, we're going to bend the elbows coming into a forward fold or bring forearms to the chair. Holding in this forward fold. So you stay there. I'm going to come up and show, if you want to do a seated version, what all of this might look like. So if you're in the standing forward fold, just stay there, relaxing into it. If you want to try from seated, we sit on the chair. And for that cat-cow, we just bring hands to the legs or to the hips, and we pull back on knees, on the top of thighs, on the front of the body, wherever you can pull, and arch, and then push off, rounding. Inhale, exhale. That's the cat-cow portion. The same great movement. And for the forward fold, and coming down, hands to the knees or dangling. Or if you have something to put your hands on, like a block or something, you can put it there. In that forward fold. So everybody in a forward fold. And bending the knees, coming up back to that tabletop. So if you're seated, you can just come up to a lifted seated posture. Here, we're gonna move into a standing chair version of downward facing dog. So if you're doing only seated, you can go back into your forward fold. If you had a second chair, you could have it in front of you and bring your hands to that and do what we're about to do from standing, but also a forward fold gets so many of these same spots in the back. So from standing, let's just step back and then shifting weight into the legs. So we're holding ourselves with our legs, not our hands. So you can see how if you were seated and you had another chair, if this was the second chair, you could get a really similar position. So here, leaning weight into the legs, sitting thighs straight back to the wall behind you. We're stretching through the back, the shoulders. And you can go back and forth. We'll walk forward, coming back into forward fold. And then stepping back into down dog. So bend your knees, just roll up nice and slowly. We're come to an upright seated position, rolling shoulders and wiggling, just moving anything that feels good, checking in what's going on in the body. So this next one, if you're doing it from seated, I don't have a great other version of this for a seated version. I only really know a good standing one for this one. So if you're only doing seated, go ahead and do some more forward folds and really stretch the back, or just take a little breather, take a break, and just watch while I go through this next one. So this one speaks to the accessible challenge portion of what I was talking about earlier, and how props can bring interest and challenge as well. So a pose that you probably have seen but maybe didn't know was a yoga pose is plank, right? So if I were on the floor, right, I would be planking like this. So that's really hard. I can come into it and hold it for a few seconds and then I'm like, oh, I'm gonna die. One way to do it is using the wall. Basically, when you're on the floor like this, you're getting the full weight of your body. So anytime you bring it up to blocks, to a chair, to the wall, you are reducing the percentage of body weight that you have to hold. And so it makes it much more accessible to actually come into the pose and really feel and notice what's going on instead of just struggling to be there. I can struggle. I can get into this and struggle to be there and like forget to breathe and not know what's going on and be very disconnected from my body. Or I can come into it on the wall or a chair and be able to stay in my body and find a level of challenge that meets my body where it is, with my upper body strength where it is. But also I'm not like struggling so hard to be there that I forget to breathe, that I can't notice anything about what's going on. And I'm like not getting the benefit of the pose. So I'm not going to demo planking on the floor because I don't want to, because it's not fun. But you know what that is, right? Push-up position. So here's a version that you can do on a chair. And if on the chair is feeling too low for you, you can do the same thing on a wall. And I will go ahead and show you that, even though this isn't like the wall yoga video, because it's so similar. So I like to move from down dog into plank. So that's what I'm going to do for us today. So we start in forward fold and we step back into down dog. And then here from down dog, we're going to start to shift weight into the hands. And I'm going to turn my hands so I can grip the sides of my chair. That's just what I like for this chair. I'm going to come up onto my toes, coming forward, bringing my hips down. And here, I'm still working. I can feel my body. You can hear it in my breath. But I can feel my breath. I can notice my body. And then I'm going to step right back into down dog. So you can come into it and right back out. Or you can come into it and hold it a little longer. So that's still really hard, honestly. Like when I get into that, my body is like, it shakes a little bit. It's like work. You can hear my breath. It got harder to talk. So I'm going to show you a wall version. I don't have a great wall for this. Oh, this is okay. So if you want a less intense version, maybe a little more accessible for you now, I would tell you to have your mat here. Don't do what I'm doing, do what I say. I'm being lazy and not moving the mat. So here you start with hands on the wall. So imagine if you were on the floor, right? This is like push-up position. So what we're gonna do is you want your hand to come out straight from the shoulder. Oh, you can't see that. Like this. We don't want it up here or down here. We want it straight out from the shoulder. And I'm gonna step back. And you can play with what amount you step back, come up onto the toes, and lean the hips forward. So it puts you in that alignment. You can't see, but here's my arm. It looks like this is my shirt. It's a plant. So my arms are coming out. And you can move them a little lower. The farther back your feet go, the lower your hands need to come. So if the chair is still like a lot for you, maybe that's not feeling good, doesn't feel safe to do that, the wall. Okay. So imagine pressing from down dog on the floor into a plank. Absolutely not. Not for me. Good for you if you do that. All right, so I'm going to do it one more time, and then we're going to move on to the last standing thing. So forward fold, stepping back, it's down dog, and shifting weight forward, up on the toes, hips come forward, and back. Okay. But also, you don't have to do that. If you're like, I don't want to, you don't have to. That's the good thing about body autonomy is you get to do whatever you want because you are the boss of you. So checking, still well within the bounds of my mat, always checking, making sure. This next one can feel scary because you are going to lean weight into the chair. Like the plank, but this time we're going to put our leg up. So this one, I want you to, if you've never done it on a chair before, don't try to do it as I'm saying it. Just watch me the first time. So normally we would center ourselves on the chair. I want you to not be centered. I want you to step over so that one leg is centered. And we do that because if you don't do that and you bring the leg up, look how easily my chair tips. Probably your chair also. So if we step over, so now my left leg is centered and I bring that up and now I'm moving it, that chair is not going to tip over. Okay, so if you have a wall next to you, especially like in the beginning, if you're feeling nervous about this, just put your hand on the wall. If you have a second chair or a dresser or a desk or anything, get a little extra support. So here, we're going to do a low lunge. This is so stretching for the lower body. What we want to do is lead with the hips, not the shoulders. I don't want you to do this. I want you to do this. So the shoulders stay back. We don't come forward because we really lose the stretch. Hips press forward. Again, bring your hand to a wall, to something else, or if you want, bring them up. It's a huge stretch for that standing leg. So right now, my right upper thigh into the hip, into the groin, so much stretching. Coming down. You can be holding on to something the whole time. So I'll do the other side. I'm going to step over. Now my right leg is centered. Getting set up here, maybe moving the belly a little to the center, make it more comfortable, and hips press forward. Add the arms if you want, add a back bend if you want. But you don't have to do any of that stuff. Just don't do this because you lose it. You need the hips to be pressing forward. And then we come out. And then the complement to this is straightening the leg and stretching the back of that leg, which I didn't do on this side. So let me just do it really quick, because we like to be even. Okay. So that's all we're going to do with that part. That's like chair yoga 201, right? 101, 201, I don't know. Part 2 is where you get into more weight bearing stuff like that. But just to show you that a chair can be something to bring your hands to. So like this is the forward fold, right? But also this is a forward fold. So here it just brings that support up a little higher. It makes the floor come up in down dog, making it more accessible. And from there, you know, you always see people like come from downward facing dog and they lift their leg up and they like step forward. If you got a big belly and big thighs, that's so hard to bring that leg through because of physics, right? And so people make it look easy and they make it seem like, oh, that's how you have to do it. But also that's not how you have to do it. But if you want to feel that like sense of fluidity or whatever, do it on the chair because it creates space for you to be able to do that. So support, stability, interest, and challenge. Okay, we're going to move to the seated portion. Now there's 2 ways that I position my chair for seated. See that I'm checking? Always check. I cannot hammer home enough. It only takes one time of that chair slipping out from under you and you face planting. Takes one time for you to become obsessed with safety. Okay, so there's 2 positions that I'll have my chair in. One is like this, straight on. And then because of the shape of this particular chair, see how it's like wider towards the front, narrower towards the back? That's the shape of this chair. Your chair might be more rounded. It might be a perfect square so where it doesn't go out at the front. So you may not need this second position, but if you have a chair like mine or you think, oh yeah, you know, like I'm having the same problem. So if I sit here and I bring my leg out, I'm hitting it. It's like the edge of the chair is digging into the back of my thigh and it like makes me not able to bring my leg out straight to the side, which we're gonna do in a moment. So what I do is I just turn the chair. Oh, too close to the edge. All right. So now I still sit facing front, but there's nothing on the side. I can very easily bring my leg out. So if you are sitting in your chair and you think that you're having that same problem, just turn it at an angle. I still have support underneath my hips, coming to a point in the front, but I have space to move the legs. So I'm just going to stay like this because that works for me in my chair. So when we sit on the chairs for yoga, we don't sit all the way to the back and we don't lean on the back until we get to like restorative. So when we're being active and using the chair, we scoot forward so that feet can be firmly planted, ankles right under the knees, like 90-degree angle. Look down if that helps. And we scoot forward to the front. What I usually like to do if the chair is facing front, right now it's like the seat is like this, but when it's like this, I scoot forward until that front edge is like kind of right in the like dip between my butt and my thigh. It's like a perfect little indentation for the edge of the chair to go right there. And then I know for my body in this chair that I'm like really nice and forward and that I have the full movement of the legs. If you sit farther back, you have support under the thigh. It's like hard to move around because that chair is there. So try scooting forward and then moving and you can see there's nothing in your way. Okay. So we'll start in a grounded position. This is mountain pose. We're going to move into some of my favorite seated chair poses. These are so similar to the standing versions. And so I always love to show them to people to say like, oh my gosh, look how similar these are. Like, it's so cool. So from here, we're going to take one leg and leave it exactly where it is. The other leg is going to stretch out to the side. And so right now, knees and toes are forward. We're going to open it out. So you can move stuff around, but we want knees and toes forward, knees and toes out. And we're gonna sit up nice and tall. And hand comes to the thigh or the shin. We're gonna side bend over, maybe coming down here. So this is gate pose. This is the chair version. The traditional version would be kneeling. So imagine if this knee was on the floor and then this leg was out. That's what it would look like. But it's the same. It feels the same. So thigh or shin, don't push on the knee. Nice side bend right here. And we're going to come up and over. This hand is going to grab onto your body or the chair or something to get a little support so you don't just fall right over, and stretching long. And you can move back and forth. You can stay here as long as you want. So let's bring that leg in, and this one will turn out and extend. So we'll do this side. So getting set up, and here we go. Get some support from somewhere up here or down here. Stretching to the side. Spiraling around, stretching along this side. And it's coming up, bend the knee, turn it in, let's wiggle, move. Okay, we're gonna do a little sequence now. So that was like a one-off. And here's a sequence. So for this one, we're gonna move a little differently. And so we'll take one leg. This is my right leg, but it's probably your left leg. We're gonna open it out just like we just did with the gate post, but we're gonna leave it like this. This leg is gonna start to walk out long. We wanna keep knee and toe facing pretty front. And in fact, I'm changing the angle of how I'm sitting. So now my hips are a little diagonal. So these are the warrior legs getting set up for extended side angle, warrior two, and humble warrior. So if you have practiced yoga before, this probably feels very familiar. So if you were standing, it's literally that. It's the same leg position. I love this so much. Same exact leg position. All right, except now we have support under our hips. All right, so shoulders and chest face front. So you're getting a little bit of a twist off the bat because hips are a little that way. Okay, extended side angle, forearm comes to front thigh, and we stretch long. So we're getting support here from the arm. If you want less support, you can just lighten how much you're leaning into it. If you want less support, coming up. I'll keep the support. That feels good. All right, extended side angle. We're gonna swoop the arms like, here we are. Chest faces front, just turn your head. It's warrior two. Reaching out, extending out through the fingertips. Warrior two is about being a badass, about being strong and grounded and expansive. Taking up space, reaching out. Drop the back arm, come get some support. Front arm reaches up. It's a nice big bend here. This is humble warrior, sometimes called exalted warrior. All right, we're gonna spiral all the way back where we started. And coming up, walk that foot in. In between, open both legs out. We're coming to goddess pose. So goddess pose in standing looks like this. Goddess pose on the chair looks like this. Or here, or honestly, whatever you want to do with your arms. And this and chair pose, I think, are actually harder on the chair if you like are going for that challenge, because you can be fully supported. Right now, I'm fully supported. I'm not super working. However, if I want to activate this posture and like engage and challenge myself, what I'll do is get ready in my feet. I'm going to squeeze my thighs, squeeze my core, and start to lift as if I were going to stand up, right? So when you stand up, you kind of engage and lift. But I'm not going to stand up. I'm just going to squeeze everything, start to lift up. This is harder than doing this standing because you're holding yourself a little up, still touching the chair, but not getting full support. Taking a break. Oh my God. It's really hard. To me, it's much harder than coming into a squat and holding it. So give your legs a little wiggle, and we're going to do the other side in that warrior sequence. So we'll turn out the other side, let this leg come out long. And again, your hips want to turn a little bit. That's great. Let them turn, shoulders to the front. Depending on your leg length, the height of your chair, it may be harder to extend that leg out long. So if it needs to be a little bent, that's totally fine. I have short legs and it just works really well with the height of this chair, but I've had people before with longer legs struggle with being able to straighten the leg. It's fine. You don't have to get it totally straight. Okay. Getting a twist already because shoulders are to the front. Let's come into extended side angle. Reaching long. Remember, you can use the support less or not at all. You can work a little harder, finding that extra challenge by lifting the arm. Let's spiral up to warrior two. So chest faces front, just turn the head, reaching out. Taking up space. Drop the back arm, front arm comes up and up. Relaxing into this side bend. And let's spiral all the way back. Extended side angle. And coming up. Bending the knee, walking the foot in. Open out. Let's do chair now. So for chair, it's similar to what I was talking about with goddess if you have that extra challenge. But chair, we want knees and toes facing forward. So a standing chair pose, just to show you from the side, looks like this. Or here, or here. It's whatever level you want, but you stick your butt out, you come into a squat, hold your core tight, your chest is lifted. So for the chair version, just like goddess, we come into it and we're here, a little lean forward. So imagine you were going to stand up, right? You kind of squeeze your muscles and start to lift. So if you want that challenge, right? If you want to bring that into this, squeeze and lift as if you were going to stand up, but hold in that like hovering. It's so hard. Right, relax, wiggle everything out. So that's a way to add challenge. Chair and goddess, I think, are way harder from the chair if you're like doing that lifting and squeezing. Now you can absolutely do a less intense version by leaning forward and bringing hands to whatever position that you want. It can be down, whatever feels good to you. Just remember, always, the farther away your hands are from your core, the harder your body has to work. So if you want to work less hard, especially in the arms, bring it in, close to the body. If you want to work harder, bring the hands away. Some days we want to chill, some days we're like, let's go. So whatever day it is for you, just remember, it matters where you put your hands. It's going to change how it feels. Okay, wiggle it out. So I showed you earlier the forward fold and cat-cow, but just to reiterate, a forward fold here looks like this, or can do a wide leg version like this. And then the cat-cow, like I showed you earlier, pulling, pushing, pulling, pushing. So I'm going to get you set up in a restorative version. Yeah, we did that. Okay. A restorative version of bound angle, which is that one where it's soles and feet together, knees out to the side. So if you have some props, it will be helpful. They don't have to be yoga props. 2 pillows would work instead of these blocks. Any small like couch-sized blanket or like beach towel would work instead of this blanket. So I'm going to get us into this restorative position. And then if you want to do the floor stuff with me, you can. And if you want to just sit in your restorative seated position, you can absolutely do that. So I'm just rolling it long edge, like into a snake, a long roll. Ideally, you would have done this before so that you could just like get into your position, but I didn't do that. Okay, so we just have a long tube, and I have 2 blocks here. So I like this, I like blocks because I like having the space in between, but you can use just like a couch cushion, a pillow or something, a folded blanket. You want something soft. You want something that raises the floor up to meet your feet and something soft. So we're going to do soles of the feet together. So I like to kind of bring my feet right in the center of the blocks, knees out to the side. And then this tube that we rolled up is going to go, find the middle, put it behind the neck, lean back against your chair seat or your chair back. We're going to tuck each end of the blanket under an arm. And you can lean your head back, and because it's tucked under the arms, the blanket's not going to move. If you want, you can clasp hands. Figure out a way to position your hands where your muscles aren't working. So if your muscles are working, honestly, sometimes just tuck them into the waistband of your pants, and the waistband will keep your hands in position. And the bonus is you look like Al Bundy. You don't have to look cool. You just have to feel what you're looking to feel. So I'll stay here in Al Bundy land just to show you that it's okay to do it. So head and neck are supported. Feet are supported. Belly is softened, just relaxing, letting it be as big as it can be. So I'm going to move. You don't have to move, but I'm going to show you the floor things really quick. We have just a few minutes left, so this is going to work out perfectly. Feel free to stay in your comfy position. You absolutely do not have to do this. And just watch. So I'm just refolding my blanket back into the size and thickness that I like for a knee pad, because I'm going to come down to the floor and kneel. So I'm going to show you 2 things on the floor. One is an active pose and one is a restorative position. So for the active pose, I'm actually going to come back. Remember we did our lunging on the chair. I'm going to do the floor version of that and show you how a chair can still be a great prop, even if you're doing it on the floor. So I'm going to use the chair to help me come down to the floor. And I'm going to kneel right on my nice padding. And then I'm going to step my right foot forward. And I'm going to come to the outside of the chair. I might actually move it back just a little. Don't want to get too close to the edge. I'm going to move my belly to the center. And I'm going to be able to bring my hands more easily here once I get in position. Right now, the weight is pushing straight down. I'm going to press the hips forward. And now I've rolled onto the top of that kneecap. And now look how easily I can bring my hands to this chair seat. I can even step my foot more forward if I want to go lower. Well, you can't really see because my belly's in the way, but I'll do it on the other side for you to see. Okay. And hinging hips forward. So now you can see what this looks like from this side. Getting a lot of support here. And remember how we straighten the leg and stretch the back of it? Ooh. All right, let me do my other side just to be even. Okay. So that's how you can still use a chair as a prop from the floor, from the traditional version of that pose, which is kneeling. So now I'm going to show you restorative. So for this, would be laying on the back, and we're gonna bring legs up the chair. So legs up the wall is like the traditional version. But legs up the chair is really great and a lot more comfortable for a lot of people. Yes, these poses are in the book, to answer your question. I'm really impressed with my ability to read that from all the way over here. The question was, these poses are in the book? Yes, they are. So here, I'm just gonna come bring my butt towards the chair, and then I'll lay back and bring legs up. And from here, I can move around. I can scoot myself closer. I can come farther away, whatever feels good. I can bring knees in. I can even bring feet to the edge of the chair to do like a knees to chest stretch, where I can just rest with my legs on the chair. This is great. This is one of my favorite things. And you can bring the chair closer if you want. So everybody usually has like how they prefer. But it's really nice, especially if laying on the floor, your low back like arches away. The more you raise the knees, the more your low back will press down to the floor. If you have been traveling, at the end of the day, this is a great thing to do. If you've been like walking around on concrete a really long time, or just walking for a long time, but especially on something like concrete, this is so nice just to let your legs like elevate and drain. It can really rejuvenate your legs. I do this all the time. This is one of my favorite things to do. You can do this on your bed. So, hey, if you're in a hotel and you don't want to get on the floor, if you can do this on the bed, just put your legs like, it would be like up the headboard basically, or up the wall if there's no headboard. There's so many ways to do this. Yeah, so this is great. You could even put like a bolster or something underneath you and elevate the hips, and that changes how this feels as well. You start to get more of a back stretch. So yeah. Okay. I guess I have to get up. I'm so comfortable. I just want to stay. All right, so you can stay in your comfy position. To get out, so there's two ways. One would be if you feel comfortable moving the chair. Sometimes you're going to knock the chair over. So if you don't feel like moving the chair, honestly, I just roll to the side and it's fine. So I'm going to come up. All right. So again, if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we talked about or anything else, feel free to ask it. Leave a comment wherever you're watching this, probably on YouTube, I'm guessing. And I check those frequently, so I'm happy to respond. Or you can come find me on Instagram. My handle is @radicalbodylove. And that's also the website, radicalbodylove.com. What else? You can get the book like pretty much anywhere books are sold, especially online. Some Barnes and Nobles have them in person, but all of them have it available to purchase and pick up at the store. But like all the online book retailers in person, Barnes and Noble, Books A Million, and a few other places like Powell's has it. Yeah, don't forget, if you're watching this before December 31st, 2021, if you buy the book, send me proof of purchase. I'll send you a gift certificate for a free class, and you can use that for yourself, or you can gift it with the book if you're giving it to somebody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching us from the future. Hello from the past. And yeah, I hope to see you again. All right, bye.